You think a phone number is just a way to reach a business? Some of them are worth more than your house. One sold for $13 million. Another became the front for a scheme that was billed at hundreds of millions, was linked to 5 deaths, and ended with its mastermind in federal prison. By the end of this, you will understand how 7 digits became one of the most valuable and most dangerous things a company can own. And you will find out how a number on a freeway billboard turned into a crime scene. Here's the strangest part. The people paying millions for these numbers do not actually own them. Nobody does. To understand how a string of digits became a fortune you cannot even hold in your hand, you have to go back to a phone call you simply could not make. How did the most forgettable thing in your life quietly become worth millions and worth lying and dying over? In 1989, Brian Scudamore was running a tiny hauling service called the Rubbish Boys. It was a pretty terrible name. So he abandoned it, rebranding his entire business around a newly acquired 7-digit string, 1-800-GYOT-JUNK. The phone number became the logo, the company name, and the entire marketing strategy. Within years, that single asset turned a local trash route into a massive franchise network, pulling in hundreds of millions of dollars annually. It worked because of a simple quirk in human psychology. Our brains are terrible at remembering random digits, but we are incredibly good at retaining words, especially when we are lazy. When you are flying down a highway at 65 miles per hour, you have about 300 milliseconds to read an ad. You will never memorize a traditional phone number in that window. But a word sticks instantly, especially when paired with a repetitive radio jingle. Brands like 1-800-Flowers and 1-800-Contacts realized this early on, turning a simple contact method into prime digital real estate. And because you can't just manufacture more of these perfect words, the market behaves less like telecom and more like fine art or rare diamonds. Take 1-800-Mattress, which reportedly fetched $13 million. Even if public filings suggest the broader brand acquisition went for $25 million, $13 million for 7 digits is still absurd. Then there is New York's local exchange Holy Grail, 212-222-2222, marketed for a cool $7.5 million. Or 1-800-HURT-911, valued at a staggering $15 million in the New York personal injury market. It sounds ridiculous, because it is. But only a handful of perfect 7-letter words exist for any industry. You aren't buying copper wires here. You're buying a monopoly on human memory. But here's the catch. You don't actually own any of this. Under FCC rules, phone numbers are not property. They are public resources allocated first come, first served. When a brand buys a number, they are actually just hiring a certified registry, a RESPORG, to control the call routing. Legally selling them outright is banned. They can only transfer if bundled with an active business. Anti-hoarding rules exist to stop stockpiling, but enforcement is a joke. Instead, brokers exploit shared use routing, renting the exact same vanity word to different local businesses by region. It is a lucrative, fragile illusion. Millions of dollars are riding on 7 digits that nobody truly owns. Which is why this invisible market was destined to spin out into a vanished emergency line, a disastrously cheap $5,000 deal, and a highway billboard empire tied to federal fraud. In 2005, the private business leasing 1-800-Red Cross discovered exactly how fragile this arrangement really is. As Hurricane Katrina battered the Gulf Coast, the FCC bypassed standard protocol and instantly reassigned the routing to the American Red Cross. No paperwork, no compensation, just a government-mandated flick of a switch. But sometimes the threat isn't a national crisis, it's just a clumsy thumb. Dial A Mattress built an entire empire around a single, desperate plea: leave off the last S for savings. They had to. Callers dialing 1-800-MATTRESS frequently sent their calls into a black hole of missed dials, or they ended up on local rival lines like 212-MATTRESS. The resulting trademark war proved a brutal reality of the phone economy. You don't need to physically steal a competitor's asset to destroy its value. You just have to stand at the end of a typo and catch the cash as it falls. In the early 2000s, a structured settlement broker holding the number 877 cash now decided to cash out. He called J.G. Wentworth. His opening offer? $1 million. He probably thought he was a genius. Wentworth's negotiators, however, did not. They talked him down back and forth until he surrendered the digits for a measly $5,000. Talk about an all-time bad trade. Wentworth took that $5,000 asset and built an empire, pasting it over operatic TV commercials that became inescapable cultural earworms. Because that is the trap of invisible assets. If you do not understand the branding value, you will practically give them away. But if you do, you can turn a cheap $5,000 phone line into a direct pipeline to human desperation. Because the most valuable words on a telephone keypad aren't positive or happy. They are terms of sheer panic, injury, accident, lawyer, debt, get help. Nothing says premium real estate like a sudden crisis. When you are having the worst day of your life, you aren't scrolling through Google comparing legal fees. You are staring at a massive highway billboard from your cracked windshield, dialing the only 7-letter word burned into your brain. But those digits rarely lead to a dedicated family firm. Instead, they are regional routing funnels. When you dial a premium injury line, a computerized routing table checks your area code and instantly forwards your call to whichever local lawyer paid the highest monthly rent for your specific territory. You think you are calling a helpline, but you are actually just a qualified lead being auctioned off in milliseconds. The phone number is the trap, and your misfortune is the product. Which is exactly how a simple marketing tool becomes an extraction machine. And some operators realized you didn't even need a car crash to make this work. In the late 2000s, if you drove anywhere in Southern California, you could not escape them. Massive yellow billboards towered over the gridlocked freeways, screaming a single aggressive command: call 1-800-GET-THIN. It was the perfect bait for a quick fix culture, promising a rapid lap band weight loss surgery through a catchy 7-digit hook. But behind those sunny yellow signs was Julian Omidi, a former dermatologist with a very dark business plan. To get insurance companies to pay for these expensive surgeries, Omidi's operation fabricated home sleep studies. They doctored PDFS, faked physician signatures, and diagnosed healthy patients with severe sleep apnea to trick insurers such as TRICARE into approving the operations. The scale was dizzying. They billed a clean $355 million through the scheme. It was a highly lucrative trap until federal agents swept in, seizing over $110 million in assets. But the real cost was not financial. It was human. At least 5 patients, including Paula Rojeski and Tamara Walter, went in for surgery and never woke up. Paula Rojeski died just 2 hours after the operation. Tamara Walter was left unattended by an anesthesiologist. Families were left shattered, and prosecutors eventually put Omidi on trial. He was convicted of fraud and money laundering, landing a 7-year federal prison sentence. It is the grim final destination of the vanity phone market. A clever marketing gimmick engineered purely to be remembered at 65 miles per hour. That became shorthand for one of the most notorious medical fraud scandals in American history. Today, those catchy Billboard digits remain an unregulated Wild West. You don't own your number, you just rent the illusion. So next time you dial a memorable jingle, remember, you're calling a loophole, and someone is always waiting to cash in. Drop your thoughts in the comments.